Hello, everyone. Jill Robinson here for our first edition of TRG 30 at a critical time in our sector and in our world. TRG 30 is designed to be a resource, both for you and for us. Quick, bite-sized information that you need in the moment to help us not just survive, but thrive through what is probably impossible to imagine thriving through right now. I'm your host today, and I'm joined by our VP of our UK and European operations, Stephen Skripek, whom you'll also see on the screen. And we will, with you over the next 30 minutes, be talking and listening to each other as we address the issues that feel most urgent, most operationally and strategically critical. And in fact, you will be able to join this conversation by using the Q&A function. So you'll see at the bottom of your Zoom screen, the Q&A box. You click on that, type and send your message. There's sort of two ways and times we'll be doing this. One, you can do it now and throughout. Stephen is joining me to help field these questions as we go, but also at the end, there will be time that we've dedicated for our conversation, and in real time, we'll be answering your questions as best we can. So let's get going. We are here on March 17th, and depending on where you operate geographically, what your business model is, we are all in a different place, at a different pace of understanding. And I have to say to you that for me, as well as I know for you, it's terrifying to see what's happening in places like Italy, and to also observe recent changes in our landscape in Canada, where movie theaters are closing. In the UK, where in the past 48 hours, Boris Johnson has created changes to the ways that the country is grappling. And here, closer to home, where I'm standing every moment. And yet, we must find a way to remember that as arts and cultural institutions, whether you're commercial or charitable, we have a role to play in inspiring our communities to connect in the ways that they can, to believe and see the future when we're able to physically come together again, and to imagine a place that's different, no doubt about it, but that we have thrived to. So now we're going to deal with short-term issues. That, of course, is what is on everyone's mind. But I'm going to be asking you, asking myself, to think about those short-term issues in the context of this place we must go. In our communities, within our teams of artists and board members and staff, and with our patrons. And there are examples popping up all over the place about where leaders like Matthew, the CEO at the Toronto Symphony, is saying to communities, this is what I see. This is the future I see. We'll be helping you. So our weekly TRG 30s will be taking place on a schedule that you've already registered for. In addition, in between, we've created a LinkedIn TRG 30 virtual network. TRG's team members are standing by to field and surface your questions, your examples, the day in and day out, because things change on a day in and day out basis. The day in and day out information, counsel, and ideas so that we can share with each other. This, we think, is what TRG, among other things, can be doing for the sector. We see you, we talk to you globally, and we want to field and enable you to talk to each other. I want to say a thank you in addition and in advance to my students. I'm on faculty at SMU, Southern Methodist University in Dallas. And these students have already, as part of their grade in real time, what better lab than now, are advancing to me, to you, the best practices and new practices that we can be learning from. This group of talented students are going to be our research arm. So don't be afraid to ask, hey TRG, what are you seeing? What do I need to be doing? We kind of have an army of brainiacs on our side, and I'm grateful to you, students at SMU. Okay, so let's get to it. We asked you, what are you worried about as you registered? And most of you, no surprise, are interested in the short term. So let's look and talk about what's there. The largest proportion of questions, about half of you had them, were about something I'm calling loyalty behavior. How do we hang on to, maintain good and right relationships with our patrons when we're not in production? How do we do this? We're going to talk about that today. Your second question, not surprisingly, was, I'm in the middle of a fundraising campaign, or I should be. What should I be doing right now? That will be next up. It'll be next up in our LinkedIn, on our LinkedIn side. It'll be next up on our TRG 30. Know that that's coming. You also smartly asked about culture. How do I keep my team together? How do I pull my artists in? How should I be communicating and leading, training and reacting, especially to artists who aren't on contract with me or on a payroll with me all the time? How do I support them when I don't have income? Finally, there's a group of you, a lot of you, who are in subscription campaigns right now. It's both a source of opportunity and a source of question, as is your financial picture in general. How do I do this? How do I keep this together this fiscal year? So this is where we're going to go first. We're also going to go to the long term, because at TRG, we work with clients. We believe deeply that the right kind of resilient results come from a revolution in the way that we work. And I'm going to be calling on you to behave revolutionary. Think about how we can use this crisis with me to change the things that help us come out on the other end in a better place. It's hard to see now, I know, but we must. We must. First, let's talk about this first quadrant, loyal behavior. How do we begin now to do differently so that we can be in right relationship in the long term? And the first thing I would say to you is we need to check our tone. Our tone right now is operational. My SMU class, our team, I have been scanning your websites. I've been looking at how you're talking about this crisis. Not surprisingly, you've been talking operationally. My governor says, my province says, my government says. I'm announcing this. We're talking about this policy, this procedure. We're very operationally oriented right now. We've got to change that. Could we move to? An example from Steppenwolf is this. Language that says we are seeing the future of an upcoming season, but we also recognize we've got a public health crisis and we have an update about that here. Might we do like the Met is doing, where the first thing that you land to is, here's how we're getting our opera to you. And the next rotation or click is, we have a message to you, our audience. We want to tell you what we're prepared to do for you. And then once you get past that initial landing page, how was your team? How are you talking to your patrons, your communities, about what you're prepared to do? Is it, hello friends, we're scared too, but this is how we're going to care for you? Is it, hello patrons and community, these are the operational steps we're taking, but we remain unshaken in our belief that arts and culture, theater is critical? Your tone. Let's check our tone on our websites, but also in our communications. How can we make them personal? How can we inspire and ensure our language now becomes about our patrons and our communities, not our fear and our operations? Texas Ballet Theater, we're all using a variety of channels and platforms, says this is a crisis. It's going to affect us. Give to any arts and cultural organization, because we're all in this together and we all need each other. Our orchestra here in Colorado Springs said, we're making promises to you. We're making promises to you, our ticket holders, to our musicians, and to the community. And we're going to make those promises to you. We need you to stand by us. One of a variety of corporate examples using Facebook, very personal narrative from a CEO who says, this has affected me. Here's what I went through. And here's how my company is prepared to stand by you, our customer. And finally, can you imagine and help your patrons imagine the future? We're looking forward. It is uncertain and we're terrified, but we are looking forward and we want to direct you to that future with us. One more example that really caught my imagination, again, from my team at SMU. I don't know this brand. It's an activewear brand, but look at the language. Take care of yourself so you can take care of the ones you love. We are obsessed about you. So be safe, take care of you, and we're going to be here for you. And I'm so curious, how could we rally our expertise, our education departments to say to families who are going to be sequestered with kids who are at home, who are driving parents nuts? I've got a 14-year-old that's doing that to me. How can your education teams provide games, ways to stay connected to the art, resources to help your community personally thrive through? Let's take a breath. Let's remember who we serve. And let's start to communicate like it. Second, we have a lot of transactions right now. There's all kinds of data and relationship in transaction that's happening right now. And this matters. And the first thing I would say to you, you won't be surprised, is that data is critical. We can't manage patron relationships. We cannot invite people back. I don't care what country you're operating in, if we're not capturing it. It's fundamental, and so is segmentation. So we have received a lot of questions about which is right for me. Exchange, refund, credit, and we've got to get the right conversation happening with the right person at the right time. Now that's more important than ever. You're going to have to be listening hard to your own patrons and your own data. But it strikes us that if someone is brand new, a first-timer to your organization, the refund and exchange is going to be the right and important conversation for you to be having to maintain their trust. And we've got to position ourselves data-wise and communication-wise for the invitation back. So let's make sure that we're asking for postal and email permissions. And let's use language in our communications and with our staff that says, we know we will be back and we want to be back in touch with you when we reopen. We'd like to send you a notification when this happens. Is this okay? And then segment that, identify that. Start now to create campaign plans for that eventuality. Regular patrons, could we do something different? Today ticks. I was to be in New York next week. I got this message. If you've purchased a ticket to any canceled show in North America, you'll be given a voucher worth 110% of your original order. 110%. That premium will cost you a lot less than the lost relationship and revenue. Is that an option that we should be considering? I think it is. Loyal patrons are different. I'm a loyal patron to United. I want United to thrive through this. I rely on them. They're issuing me a credit. I'm happy about that. I'm happy to use it. In our world, is it more like this? We will be in touch with you. We imagine that we'll be issuing some kind of relationship credit, something so that you can stick with us and you can support us through philanthropy. I'm not suggesting we can't ask other patrons for philanthropic gifts at this time. I am saying listen hard. Listen hard, because we want to maintain relationship and maintain future income as well as gain the short-term income we need. And with that in mind too, our client Boston Ballet was asking the question, Lisa, holdouts, there are lots of patrons who aren't buying, they're just waiting. And I could look in my database and see the households that are typically have bought by this time but aren't. How can you deploy your team to understand the behavior in your database and start communicating with people? Start whetting their appetite for what's to come, even though we can't predict when we'll be back. Whetting their appetite, telling them and reminding them that we will be back, being in close and careful contact with them right now. And finally, on this point, I want to remind you, your teams are going to be on the phone with these community members and patrons. Carefully evaluate your team's level of stress, their anxiety. Make sure that you've got the people who can relate in all of the right ways at this time. Just attend to it. Let's give care to our people and the way that they're engaging with our patrons in our communities. Okay, Stephen, now as we reach the top of the hour and have some time, what questions have we heard from the field? And all of you, what questions does this surface for you?
Just a reminder, if you're looking to submit your question, use the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen to type in your question, and I'll be able to field those through to Jill. Anything we don't answer, we will get to on our LinkedIn group. Jill, there's a couple of questions around a similar theme that digs in a little bit more around this donation side of transactions. So how can we engage patrons to donate the value of not used tickets or cancelled seasons? And I appreciate you've talked and made recommendations around what segments we would ask patrons to donate, but some places have already made statements out there around, we're going to contact you for a refund. Is there a way we can reframe that language, and how broadly should we potentially go to with the donation ask around ticket buyers?
Well, there's devil in the detail. So what I'm going to say, and Stephen, work with me, help me tailor this in real time. But my instinct is, if we've already been in touch to say we're going to be in touch with you about a refund, the question would be, how can we take some of this inspiration language to say, we're learning in real time. and we know we're going to be back. And so now we'd like to talk with you about if a refund is absolutely what you want, then we'd like to be in touch with you about when you can come back. Opt in for that or anticipate that we're going to do that. Maybe it's alternatives. And an alternative would be for you to exchange or get a credit. An alternative would be for you to donate. I just feel like options for people that move us from refund only to other options that give the consumer choice or the patron choices, but also frame it in this optimism of being back feels right to me in reaction.
Yeah, and I would add to that, Jill, is how can we ask our ticketing providers, who I know are also moving in real time from the discussions that we're having, to support you with the volume of inquiries and refunds and exchanges that you may have to handle. How do we support, how do we ask them to support us to ask patrons to make choices, and also make sure that we're seeking particularly permission and data to get back in touch, regardless of that choice of donation, exchange or refund. We need to be able to communicate with these patrons to thank them for whatever choice they made. You had a refund, you had a donation, whatever that may be, but now we're ready for you to come back and want to invite you to return.
Yes.
There's a couple of questions, Jill, around timing of communication. How much is too much communication right now? I mean, all of our inboxes are being filled with kind of copy and paste messages right now. So the personalization, I think, is key, but also the timing around personal messages, particularly from an AD or ED. One particular question says, we know some folks may be going through real financial crisis in their own lives. Do we go out immediately? Do we wait? What about if we're waiting to put new shows on sale that are perhaps later on in the year? The timing in the midst of all of these announcements, when is right to talk to our patrons in the context of busy inboxes and a changing world every 24 hours from our governments?
Every bit of counsel that I have in my bone and that I've read says that during a crisis, communication must be increased. Now, I have an inbox, I see, and I understand the concern that we have about over-communicating. This feels to me like a time when we've got to pull our box offices, comms, marketing, people together to campaign plan and to watch data. So we might say a weekly email is our campaign plan, segmented, and watch opt-outs carefully to see if needles are moving or data saying it's too much. Ask people, how often would you like to hear from us? On the phone and in email. I don't know of anybody that's doing that, but it occurs to me that that's a wise idea. Stephen, what else would you say? I feel like asking patrons, watching opt-out, but boy, oh boy, everything I'm reading and everything I feel says we've got to be in regular communication that enables us then to say, here's the update, here's where we're at.
Yeah, I think also, you know, we're considering from a segmented point of view what message we're putting out here, right? We've got some patrons that are due to be attending performances, let's just say through to the end of March. What are we saying to those people? Tonight, you're supposed to be in our venue. We miss you. We wish you were here.
Right.
Here's some content to share from this event. That's one particular message for them. Those patrons that have no future forward booking, what's our message to them? If they're a subscriber and they have renewed, if you've started your subscription cycle, if, as in the UK, some of you I know have gone on sale with your autumn seasons, who's booked, who hasn't. The personalization of the message rather than the frequency is perhaps more important in this time. Don't fret about
planning.
Yeah.
Campaign planning in our parlance, but for those of you who think, you know, big Excel grid, understanding, as Stephen describes, who the segments are that you're talking to, and sit down and have rational conversations about when is the right time, what is the right message, with what frequency, and then maybe ask and watch the data. Campaign planning, that's exactly right, Stephen.
So a question for those that have not started subscription renewals and have not gone on sale in the UK for their autumn season or their events that are due to be in the autumn or spring next year. Do we wait? Do we go ahead? There's still programming considerations. What do we do?
Well, my instinct is that this is the right time and an opportunity to say we are coming back, right? You're agreeing. And so I think the message of we are in business. We recognize that this is a time with uncertainty. Here's what we know. And we know we are going to be. And that's, the devil will be in that detail depending on when the subscription opens. So Stephen, some of them may open in 3 months and some of them may open not for 6 months. Some of the communication for those that open in 3 months, well, it wouldn't be their first communication, not 3 months from now. So we're talking about something that's out far enough that they have some time to state confidently that we're coming back, and that this is the process for managing you throughout.
Yeah, I think also as you go and fire ahead, to Jill's point, you know, we are going to be back. And so here's your opportunity. Continuing to put and remind patrons of our promise to you, okay? If we go on sale and you purchase and you make this commitment, things have not changed. Here's our promise to you. These are your moments when you can solidify that trust in you as an organization. So if things change, if we have to expand this period of time that we're not here for you, if you make this commitment now, here's our promise to you.
Yes, right.
And we're going to, you know, the LinkedIn group's going to be an important place for us to react in real time. We're going to let you know what we're seeing in terms of renewals, what we're seeing in terms of advanced bookings. We're working with our partners on how we can access more of that data. Indeed, I know someone's just commented around Tessitura having an analytics dashboard to monitor this data. Your ticketing suppliers, I know, are supporting this from a data standpoint. And as we collate those, we will share them on LinkedIn. And if we've got counsel around that, we will advance that straight to you. I'm just seeing what other questions here. Personal thank yous for those that have donated. How can we still be personal when they're not in the house and they're not in our organizations and visiting us?
Oh, let's use this as I look at the clock, Stephen, as maybe a way to wrap up and transition to. But this is where we can learn from this isn't just an arts related thing. We can learn from my 14-year-old daughter. Social and video and email, there are ways to say directly to someone, we want to thank you. In fact, there's a service, email services that allow videos embedded in that say, I'm so grateful to you right now. I feel like on our LinkedIn group, we could be surfacing and just showcasing example after example so that you can be using. This might be one time when we say, wow, the power of social media to not be a distraction, but be a cohesive force in the way that we thrive through this. That's what I would say about that. Stephen, is there anything else that as you see it feels like it's so cute we must deal with it before I transition us and honor our commitment to be out in 30 minutes?
No, I think, there are other questions on here which I know that we will be able to respond to on our LinkedIn group. I think the thing that is important to say is that, yes, this is being recorded. Yes, this will be shared. And a reminder that we have these future roundtables where you can invite colleagues to join too. But this LinkedIn group, which Jill, I know you're transitioning to instructions on, is the place to continue to ask questions, to continue to share. And we, as Jill said, we have a team of people ready and waiting to talk to you and respond to you on there.
Yes. So we will, as this slide says, be following up with all of you who've registered to ensure that you've got connectivity to this LinkedIn group. You've got the content that we shared today, and that you have an ability through that LinkedIn group, not only to talk to each other, but also get counsel from TRG and the partners that we're going to be inviting to help us think critically and well about any number of issues that you're going to be facing as administrators. Listen, there's a lot of you who've joined today, and we're here at a time. And I'm grateful that you would take this time, but more than that, we need you to continue to take this time so that we can learn from each other's successes and failures, inspiration and fears, so that we can be the sector that at the end of this, the world says, oh man, of course arts and culture. If we had ever forgotten, we now see arts and culture makes our communities better, and we can't wait to get back. Thanks for joining us today. We'll see you again soon. May the force be with you. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.